Hey guys, I just got back to my desk after being out of town for a couple of days, and it was a good day to come back because the Wayfair parties have today as their deadline to respond to the oppositions to the motions for summary judgment and the motion for judgment on the pleadings. So Jennifer Abel submitted a motion for conditional summary judgment against Stephanie Jones. Now, this is in the Lively Wayfair action, not the Jones versus Abel action. So Stephanie Jones is not a party, but Jennifer Abel filed a motion for conditional summary judgment saying that third party Jonesworks would be responsible if the judge ruled in favor of Lively against Abel because Abel was acting within the scope of her employment for Jonesworks when she did what she did. Abel says that she was acting within the scope of her employment, acting on behalf of Jonesworks, and Stephanie Jones contends that Abel was acting in her own self-interest. So the responses to Blake's opposition to the motion for summary judgment, in which she made all those big claims about Alex Sachs and other women on set, Wayfair's response to that will likely come out later today, but as soon as it does, I'll be working on that. And of course, also, they have to respond to her opposition to the motion for judgment on the pleadings. So I have my work cut out for me today. But since this one is up early, I thought I would go ahead and go over it. And there's no love lost between Stephanie Jones and Jennifer Abel, but it's always interesting to read what they have to say about each other through their lawyers. Stephanie Jones, opened her opposition to the motion by saying Jennifer Abel is talking out of both sides of her mouth. And then we also learned in documents that were filed that same day that former employee of Melissa Nathan's company, Tag, apparently testified to the fact that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was behind these smear websites. Stephanie Jones calls them smear websites. Stephanie Jones Lies and StephanieJonesLeaks.com. And if you didn't see those before they got pulled off the internet, damn, you missed a gem. I mean, that was awesome. But even if The Rock is behind it, and even if Melissa Nathan and Tag were behind it, it seems that much of what was written and said were protected opinions, protected expression of speech by people who didn't even work for Jonesworks anymore. So unless they had some kind of NDA, Stephanie Jones just drew a whole lot of attention to a bunch of negative, publicity about her that otherwise most people probably wouldn't have noticed. And you put a popular celebrity like Dwayne Johnson on it, and then all of a sudden you're going to get a lot of hate for Stephanie Jones. So it actually blows my mind how ineffective and ridiculous she is as a public relations person. But I don't know. I'm just a member of the general public, which is kind of your target audience, Stephanie. So maybe we want to adjust the strategy here. All right, let's take a look at what Jen Abel had to say. Regardless of how Stephanie Jones tries to minimize her role, Jonesworks cannot sidestep that A, Jonesworks was contractually obligated to perform public relations services for the Wayfair clients. B, Jonesworks employed Abel as its vice president of talent and as the point person for the Wayfair clients. C, Jones knew of Abel's activities that are the subject of Lively's claims. And D, Jonesworks was handsomely paid by the Wayfair clients for the work Abel performed for them, without any commission being paid to Abel as is standard. Jonesworks' assertion that it maintains an ethos of positive publicity is refuted by her former employees and her own words. So Stephanie Jones was trying to say, no, I only promote positive publicity, even though Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson allegedly made these smear websites or participated in the making of these smear websites because she went out of her way to slam him as her former client. And again, at this point, these are just allegations, but I have a hard time not believing it. You know what I mean? So footnote 2 here is linking to Glassdoor reviews. Let's take a look at some of those Glassdoor reviews real quick. And I just sorted by most recent. So this was last year in March. Learned how to deal with difficult people. Pros, cool clients, trauma bonded with coworkers. Cons, mental warfare, unprofessional environment, not a place to grow. Good lord, the hoops you have to jump through just to read these reviews on Glassdoor. All right, here's another one. Whatever you do, avoid this company. Pros, really no pros. The client seemed initially exciting and the CEO makes a good sell about false opportunity, but the bad significantly outweighs the good. Cons, the most toxic environment I've ever worked in. The CEO is extremely involved and she's the biggest bully, verbal abuser, and a horrible person. She yells and screams and belittles everyone on her team from higher ups to account coordinators. The amount of names she called me while I worked there was insurmountable. Seriously, this job affected my mental health, my personal life, and changed me forever. I still have trauma from this experience. Please do not work here and get caught up in the lies of exciting clients and false promising opportunities. I mean, this is the kind of thing that I never would have noticed if Stephanie Jones wasn't doing what she's doing. Somebody says it was an okay job. I mean, I guess I'm happy for them. Here's another. If you want to be miserable, apply now. Again, met some amazing people that I'm now trauma bonded to. And they said dictator/abusive type leadership. Senior management is on a power trip. Very, very high turnover rate. People are not happy at this job. Here's another one that says stay far away. Jonesworks is a high school with immature mean girls. The CEO is horrible, and her toxic leadership has led other staff members to act the same way. No HR to protect employees. When things don't go in Stephanie's way, then colleagues are forced to point blame at one another. It's disgusting and unfair to people who sacrifice their time to help make an agency better. High turnover because overall this is the worst agency in the industry. Soon it will all crumble down no matter how cool the clients are. Advice to management. Seek help, Stephanie, and hire an HR team to help you manage. Your employees are suffering mentally because of you. Here's another one that says it's not worth it. Stephanie Jones, CEO and founder, is a controlling, toxic presence and abuser, and I would neither recommend prospective employees nor prospective clients to join Jonesworks. Again, they're mentioning extremely high turnover. And that reason starts and ends with Stephanie Jones. Stephanie verbally berates employees, often publicly in front of the whole office, and sometimes too in front of clients. She also puts down both current and former Jonesworks coworkers constantly. She interrupts you, does not listen, and gaslights you. She will attack you and degrade you if you try to disagree, defend a coworker, or stand up for work/accomplishments, among other things. She demonstrates a cyclical, abusive nature, where one moment she will be sweet/flatter an employee, brag about them to clients, etc., and then a moment later will flip on them and scream at them. The cycle repeats, and once it starts, it does not end until the employee leaves the company. There's no reasoning with her, and no matter how talented you are or how high quality your work is, she will find something negative and will continuously bring things back to whatever that negative point is. There is also no HR at the company. Most employees are severely underpaid, and there is no formal training provided to employees. Due to the high turnover, junior team members get thrown into situations they do not have the tenure/experience for, and then are subsequently screamed at by Stephanie if they get something wrong. Despite being CEO, she interjects herself into the day-to-day of most client accounts at the company. Stephanie Jones is the problem. She perpetuates an atmosphere of fear and intimidation in the workplace, and until she completely removes herself from the day-to-day operations and accounts of the workplace, I would not recommend this place to anyone. And this person's advice to management was, I'd normally recommend getting an HR department, but when the problem is the founder, company namesake, and CEO, I'm not really sure how HR would be successful in solving this issue. Yeah, I see a lot of complaints about the leadership, Stephanie. I also just realized that I had the wrong tab on display the entire time I was reading those to you guys, but I'm simply not going to re-record that. So you can go and click on the link to Glassdoor in the document on the footnote if you want to read them yourself. But you have to go do that stupid thing where you review your own job for the you review. It's stupid. All right, just whatever. Anyways, now that I'm done with my little field trip there, let's get back to the actual document we're supposed to be reading. In June 2024, Stephanie Jones instructed Jonesworks staff to, and there's a bunch of redactions here, something about Lively. The staff confirmed that they would do something I don't know. You know, there's lots of redactions here, unfortunately. But this is apparently supposed to demonstrate that she does not, in fact, only maintain an ethos of positive publicity. Ultimately, Jones did whatever Lively needed her to do, betray her own clients, making Jones the double agent, and foolishly increasing Jonesworks' own potential liability. Jonesworks' opposition ignores Lively's verified interrogatory responses in which Lively identified the specific actions, emails, and texts that form the basis of her claims against Abel. Citing Lively's sworn responses, Abel's motion demonstrates that her actions consist of monitoring negative publicity of Baldoni and potentially garnering positive publicity for him, actions that fall within the scope of Abel's employment. Jonesworks does not cite any evidence, because there is none, showing that Abel placed, boosted, or amplified any negative content about Lively. Instead, Jonesworks A inadequately hinges its opposition on conclusory allegations from Lively's Second Amendment complaints that Abel participated in a sophisticated press and digital campaign designed to retaliate against Lively, and B then contends that the scope of Abel's employment did not include such retaliatory activity. However, Jonesworks cannot defeat a motion for summary judgment by resting solely on pleadings because uncorroborated allegations are insufficient to create a triable issue of fact. So basically, Stephanie Jones has no actual evidence that Abel acted in the way that she's accused of acting. She's resting her kind of position here on Lively's allegation that Jen Abel participated in a smear campaign, But the Wayfair parties here note that they don't provide any evidence of that because there is no evidence that that happened, and that Lively's, unproven allegations are not sufficient here. All right. Furthermore, Jonesworks was aware in real time of Abel's public relations activities. Oh, this is where this gets interesting, okay? Because Jones was surreptitiously monitoring Abel's phone, as evidenced by text messages involving Abel, but no other Jonesworks employee, and produced herein by Jonesworks. So Stephanie Jones produced text messages from Jennifer Abel's phone that didn't involve anybody else. So she only could have got that from Jennifer Abel's phone. So it sounds like they can prove she was doing that because of what Stephanie Jones produced in discovery. When it says stamped as Jonesworks, that means Jonesworks was the one to produce it. Highlighting its desperation, Jonesworks mischaracterizes the defendant's expert reports to provide an opinion which it unambiguously does not. Specifically citing the expert report's reference to Lively's allegation that a retaliatory smear campaign is not standard public relations, Jonesworks disingenuously contends that the expert concluded that Abel's actions were not ordinary public relations. In other words, even though the expert clearly refers to Lively's claims and what is alleged in her second amended complaint, Jonesworks misrepresents that such statements are the expert's opinions. In any event, Jonesworks has now opened the door and waived any objection to the admissibility of the expert report. As such, the court should consider the expert's unrebutted opinions that the steps outlined for the Wayfair clients in the scenario planning document, so heavily relied upon by Lively, are consistent with standard reactive crisis management practice, and that any artificial proactive campaign to discredit Lively would have taken weeks or months to effectuate, not mere days as she alleges. Okay, so Jones was citing this expert report. And in that expert report, the expert had referenced Lively's allegations. So talked about Lively's allegations. Jones tries to pass that off as the expert concluding that Lively's allegations are correct, when really the expert was just referencing the allegations at hand. So the Wayfair parties are clearing up here that the expert actually says that Abel's actions are consistent with like regular PR practice, and that if there was like a fake artificial smear campaign going on to ruin Blake Lively's reputation and retaliate against her, it would have taken weeks or months, not just a couple days. Well, Blake Lively is the only person who could take Blake Lively down that fast. Those are my words, obviously not the experts, but whatever. So a lot of this is going to be rehashing what we've read before, so I'm not going to read it word for word, but we'll go over the rest of it here. The record demonstrates that Jonesworks should indemnify Abel. She acted within the scope of her employment for Jonesworks. Jonesworks admits it's a well-known PR firm, that it hired Abel in 2020, and that it promoted her to vice president of talent. She served in this role from November 2021 through August 21st, 2024. So that's like 3 years. The conduct at issue in Lively's claims occurred between the end of July 2024 and the middle of August 2024. Jonesworks admits that during such period, Abel, and then it's redacted, but they're trying to show that she, performed PR services for Wayfair as a Jonesworks employee, at Jonesworks' direction in her role as the vice president of talent and the person overseeing the Wayfair account. And they point out here that she was the primary point person for Wayfair and Baldoni. Jonesworks does not dispute that Abel advised Jones, and I would really like to see what that says, but I can't. So Abel managed media and press for Wayfair. She communicated with Jonesworks personnel about something in TikTok videos. Jonesworks also concedes that Jones knew that Abel was working with Baldoni on his press tour in connection with the premiere of the film in late July, early August, amid reports of strife between Baldoni and Lively. Furthermore, Jonesworks admits that Abel kept her in the loop for all press strategy. During this period, Jones assured Baldoni that she had a plan and that she had, well, I don't know. Jonesworks admits Jones took credit for successfully managing every crisis for Justin without any negative press coming to light. Contrary to Jonesworks' theory that Abel went rogue, Jones' own emails show that she had assigned multiple employees, Team Baldoni, to work on the Wayfair client's account during summer of 2024. Jonesworks' reliance on the allegation in Lively's pleadings is misplaced. To defeat a motion for summary judgment, the non-moving party must point to evidence in the record demonstrating either the existence of a material triable issue of fact or that summary judgment is inappropriate as a matter of law. Here, Jonesworks insufficiently cites the conclusory allegations from Lively's pleading as proof that Abel's actions fell outside the scope of her employment. She fails to discuss the evidence cited in Lively's interrogatory responses, which Abel addresses in her motion, and which proves that Abel's public relations activities were within the scope of her employment. The expert report supports the motion. Jonesworks tries to misdirect the court by contending the expert report of James Haggerty undermines the summary judgment motion. As explained in the expert report, the scope of work agreement prepared by TAG and the subsequent scenario planning document are in keeping with standard practice in the crisis communications field as evidence of reactive crisis planning. Notably, the scope of work confirms that TAG will work closely with Jonesworks. Mr. Haggerty also opined the hiring of a crisis communications consultant in the face of perceived reputational threats should not be considered in any way evidence of a negative or nefarious intent. Rather, it is well established that such retention is entirely acceptable, appropriate, and prudent for organizations, brands, and high-profile individuals seeking to mitigate reputational risk, particularly in the face of threats, which I honestly think this entire time this was glaringly obvious that what they were doing was basic crisis PR. Like, all celebrities or high-profile people, they have someone who can do this for them in a crisis. And I all but guarantee you that the CIA guy that Blake Lively hired to do her crisis PR does the exact same shit. So trying to ruin Justin Baldoni and the Wayfair party's reputation and then crying about it when they hire a crisis PR person is absolutely fucking ridiculous. In short, the expert report confirms that Abel's activities were standard public relations steps and fall squarely within the scope of her employment. Abel's public relations actions were foreseeable. Jonesworks further argues that it did not foresee the conduct at issue and or the conduct was not a natural incident of Abel's employment. However, they neither specifically address the conduct identified by Lively in her interrogatory responses, nor cite any evidence demonstrating that such conduct was unforeseeable or not a natural incident of Abel's employment. The record demonstrates that Abel's conduct was not only foreseeable, but also that Jones played an integral role therein. In fact, when Jones was notified about growing tension between Lively and Baldoni, Jones told her team, including Abel, that they would, and I don't know. Jonesworks seemingly argues that basic public relations works, responding to press inquiries, monitoring media coverage, and coordinating messaging, is beyond the scope of Abel's employment. Specifically, Jonesworks claims Abel planted a negative story, which Jonesworks concedes via silence was never published, and in any event, placing stories is standard public relations. Identified social media content that was hostile to Lively, which Jones expressly, and then, of course, it's, blacked out. Suppressed a report of Baldoni's alleged misconduct, standard public relations, and worked with TAG to manipulate content, without citing evidence any manipulation occurred, let alone by Abel. In sum, according to Jonesworks, the very work that Jonesworks contracted to do for the Wayfair clients, and which the expert report confirms as standard PR activities, are beyond the scope of Abel's employment. The court can and should reject that notion without a trial. Jonesworks identifies no post-date conduct warranting any limitation of Abel's motion for conditional summary judgment. She argues that summary judgment is unavailable for post-termination conduct. However, Jonesworks does not identify any such post-termination conduct. Instead, she meekly refers to Lively's allegation that the so-called retaliation is ongoing. So she's basically saying that she's not responsible for what happened after Abel was no longer working for Jonesworks, and she's asserting that the smear campaign is ongoing because Blake Lively says so, and that since it's ongoing, Jennifer Abel is responsible for all of this that happened because it happened after her employment with Jonesworks was terminated. Again, no evidence whatsoever that there's any sort of ongoing retaliatory smear campaign, so Stephanie Jones is just relying on Blake's word, which is, well, that's a choice. Jonesworks does not explain how that is actionable. Okay. Then we have Jonesworks' improper Rule 56.1 response. So this is Jonesworks' response to Abel's 56.1 statement of facts. It says Jonesworks' response is a 64-page smokescreen littered with improper qualifications on uncontested facts, feigned disputed or partially disputed facts without any contrary support, improper argument, and newly asserted facts irrelevant to Abel's motion. In response to certain facts it cannot dispute, Jonesworks tries to limit its response by writing, for instance, undisputed as to the content of Jones' referenced testimony. In other instances, Jonesworks attaches long narratives of irrelevant information and argument to paragraphs it should otherwise admit. For example, in response to Abel's assertion that the Wayfair clients from May 20th to August 2024 paid fees to Jonesworks, Jonesworks responds undisputed, but then launches into a 10-line response seeking to inject its own spin on an incontrovertible fact. These transparent attempts to obfuscate Abel's factual assertions, adding page after page of argument, are improper. Jonesworks also purports to cite evidence that does not actually controvert Abel's assertions. In some instances, Jonesworks disputes facts but cites no evidence at all. For these reasons, the court should grant Jennifer Abel conditional summary judgment against Jonesworks on the second cause of action in her amended third-party complaint. So they also have a declaration from Kevin Fritz with a couple of things attached. Unfortunately, the Jonesworks texts that are Exhibit 2 are going to be under seal. The expert report is here. I'm not going to read the whole expert report on the recording right now. We can take a look at his conclusion. It says, based on my professional background and experience in the crisis communication field, and after a review of relevant literature related to crisis communications, I am prepared to testify that the hiring of a crisis communications consultant in the face of perceived reputational threats should not be considered in any way evidence of a negative or nefarious intent. Rather, it is well established that such a retention is entirely acceptable, appropriate, and prudent for organizations, brands, and high-profile individuals seeking to mitigate reputational risk, particularly in the face of threats. A misunderstanding of the role of a crisis communications manager often feeds negative perceptions regarding the role of crisis communications. Media monitoring is a standard practice in all public relations, and particularly in crisis communications and other sensitive communications matters, and should not be seen as an effort at social media manipulation. The scope of work document prepared by TAG, as well as the document entitled Scenario Planning, It Ends With Us, are in keeping with standard crisis communications planning practices. The growth in media and social media coverage negative to Miss Lively starting in August 2024 is unlikely to have been caused by the work done by the crisis communications consultants hired by the Wayfair parties, given the short time frame. Tools to measure media and social media sentiment are sometimes less effective during crises, litigation, or other sensitive dispute-related public issues. There is a need, therefore, to drill down on the data, particularly when attempting to discover causal relationships. All right, guys, that's all I got for now, but I should be back later tonight, I think. I don't know what time we're going to have the rest of this available, but I'll be around. So see you all soon. Thanks.